Hi, thank you for joining me as I go through the book of John and offer you my reflections upon it. I'll be starting at the very beginning with John 1. I'll be reading verses 1 through 13 as I go through the different verses. I'll be reading out of the NIV. Today we're going to be looking at creation, Trinity, life, light, and the children of God. These introductory verses in John are like a big thesis statement for an essay. John is setting forth some truths that he will clarify as the gospel continues. John 1 through 3. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. So here we see that the Word is defined in the very first verse. The Word is God and is with God. So the clear implication of this is that God is more complex than a single entity. Of course, we know this to be true because we believe in the Trinity. We understand that the Word is just as much God is God is God. By reading beyond these verses, we will see that the Word is Jesus. In the beginning of what? Creation. That is logically necessary. If God is God, then he is eternal and predates creation. There can be no beginning to eternity, so this is the beginning of creation. Note the tense of the verbs in the first two verses. The Word was with God. This indicates that the Word predates creation. It confirms our hypothesis that God is eternal. The Word is the agent of creation. Colossians 1:16 and Hebrews 1:2 also specified that Jesus made the universe. Verse 4, in him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. It would seem natural that the Creator would also be the one that creates life. Life cannot exist without a living being as its source. Dead stuff cannot in any way create life from itself. However, this life is even broader than physical life. It is the light of men. In other words, our spiritual being is dependent upon Jesus. Whereas animals have life because of being created, we have more than just physical life. Unfortunately, the light of men is complete darkness before God regenerates us. Therefore, we are in darkness and can't understand who Jesus is or any other spiritual truth until his light is in us. Verses 6 and 7. There came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning the light, so that through him all men might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. Verse 6 introduces John the Baptist. John the Apostle makes it clear that John is not the Christ. He is only a forerunner of one who preaches about the Christ. Why all the emphasis on John the Baptist not being the light is important for those who were following John's baptism but had not yet known about Jesus. We see in the book of Acts where isolated followers of John the Baptist hadn't even heard of Jesus. Verse 9, the true light that gives light to every man was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. Again, we find the references to Jesus being the light of all men. Does this mean that all men are saved? We could go down that rabbit trail, but when we get into the following chapters, it will be clear that not everyone is or will be saved. This is more likely referring to the fact that there is no other light by which we must be saved. We have a hint here and previously that this is true. Number one, the darkness didn't understand. Number two, the world didn't recognize it. Verses 11 through 13. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not out of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. Wow. Jesus came first to Jews, his own. So, as the book of John unfolds, we will see how and why the Jews rejected him. There is a clarification in who will be children of God, those who receive him. This is more than just opening the door and saying, "Come in, Jesus." There must be a proper belief or understanding of who Jesus is. There also must be an agreement and union with him. The concept of receiving is providing support to someone with whom you completely agree. Receiving is providing physical and spiritual support. You don't receive enemies, and you don't support those who have a different Jesus or gospel. Look up Galatians 1:8. You may invite them in and give them cookies and milk so you can witness to them, but you don't assist them in their ministry. Some of those preaching a different gospel won't even come into your house because they believe entering your house would appear to be receiving you. We are children of God only by God's will. Just being born physically doesn't make us God's children. Verse 13 points to divine election. God causes us to be born spiritually, and that predates us ever receiving him. Thank you for joining me, and we'll continue this again starting in verse 14.